crashing down. All around this empty town, we're searching for the lost and found. But you don't care, you're unaware. Keep moving like the scars aren't even there. It's in the air, like a blazing flare. Just stare, cause the flames will burn us. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. I used to kiss your head when you cried for me. Hold your hand while the pain was over. Keep you warm by the roaring sea. You meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. My darling dear, you're never here. When I'm in pain, you hide and disappear. Like shadows in the atmosphere, charting the stratosphere. Yeah. I prayed for you and kept you near, in hopes you'd chase away my fears. I'm on my own, you made it so, and now I'm chasing nightmares through. I used to run with you through the great big leaves, laugh at you when you laugh at me. Hope for us because I believe the home was just you and me. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, I'm gonna do this on my own. No point in blaming you, you did not know. Oh, I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, I'm gonna do this on my own. No point in blaming you, you did not know. Oh, oh, I'm gonna do this on my own. No point in blaming you, you did not know. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. Took a swing at a wrecking ball, and I prayed for my downfall, and I found a way to reconcile, 'cause in my heart it's not worthwhile. It's a bloody battlefield where some go down, others heal. In the end it's all the same. All you can do is play the game. Oh, do we say goodbye? Refuse to question why. I'm sad to say I'm sorry, so lie. Pretend that you're okay. Swear that you will stay. Keep trying for one day. I'm sick of all these lies. Don't care if I capsize. There's nothing left for me to hide. Don't wanna live a lie. Too many lows, too many highs. Too many things to criticize. And so I leave it all behind. Don't wanna live a lie. Life kept spitting at my feet and forced me down a dead-end street, when all I had went up in flames, burning only dark remains. I cover up every part of my skin, oh, 'cause I don't like the person within. Oh, I know I'm the one to blame. All I can do is take the shame. Oh, do we say goodbye? Refuse to question why. I'm too sad to say I'm sorry, so lie and pretend that you're okay. Swear that you will stay. Keep trying for one day. Whoa, I'm sick of all these lies. Don't care if I capsize. There's nothing left for me to hide. Don't wanna live a lie. Too many lows, too many highs. Too many things to criticize. So I leave it all behind. Don't wanna live a lie. A lie. I don't wanna live a lie. We'll live a lie. Ooh, I'm sick of all these lies. Don't care if I capsize. Oh no. Empty hearts and neon lights. They're playing with my mind. Gotta get out of here tonight. Oh, I wanna run off and fly. And I'll tell myself it's fine to be alone, just to find somewhere that finally feels like home. Oh, oh, oh. I hate all this overthinking. Oh, 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 oh. The more I swim, the more I'm sinking. Take me to a world of silver, no more heartbreaks, tears, painkillers. Take me somewhere unfamiliar, bring me back to where
Howdy.
we started out. Get me out of now, to where we started out.
Welcome in Hardcore Penn State Football. Got a good show for you tonight. Not a jam-packed show.
It's not going to be a great show.
Potential for great. I just don't like saying it's going to be a jam-packed show every time, Sean.
I understand.
got some combine news. Gonna hit on Penn State's best season openers draft. Got some winter workouts and media day coming at you. See you guys in a second.
Turning truth to lies. Gotta get up, stop wasting time. Yeah, I wanna run off and fly.
Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Corey Stogie. With me, as always, the great Sean Kane. How you doing today, Sean?
Doing wonderful, Corey. How are you?
Oh, I am doing fabulous.
That's three fabulouses.
Yeah. I'm doing pretty good. Guess Penn State will be playing in basketball tonight, so we'll see kind of do or die for them at this point. I think they kick off or tip off in about 30 minutes. But things are going pretty good. So
Not with them.
no, not with them. Good clarification. So originally, did we discuss? I think we discussed it on the pod where we were like, maybe we should talk about Wally Triplett and company. I don't know if that was on the pod or not, but we discussed that. Well, then I was doing a decent amount of research into that 1947 season and the 1948 Cotton Bowl. And I was texting Sean today, and I was like, there is just so much in that 1947 season that I did not know anything about. And the more I dove into it, the more I was like, we've got to just do a whole episode on this. I mean, this is just, there's a lot there. And so I think that's what we're going to do. And so instead of, we're going to talk, have a segment today about Wally Triplett and in honor of Black History Month. And I just don't think that is going to do it justice. And so I think we're just going to, maybe not an entire episode, but really draw it out and really go through it, because 1947 season, there's a lot of cool things that I want to discuss about. I don't want to go too far into it, but it obviously was right after World War II. And so you have some super old players on that team and some super young players on that team. First time Penn State had African Americans in the varsity squad. A coach that really wanted to put Penn State on the map. And just a lot of good stories. Fist fights with West Virginia. I mean, there's a game at Hershey Park. So there's a lot there. And I want to talk about it and really enjoy and flesh it out, which I think would do it justice. So I don't know if we're going to do that maybe next week, Sean. I don't know if we can prepare for that by then. It'll still be Black History Month, so do you want to aim for that?
Sure. I mean, it really sounds like the kind of story that you want to do in the next season. And, especially with the big Black History Month and everything.
Yeah, so let's plan for that. So it's more than just the We Are. It's more than just Wally Triplett and Denny Hogard. It's the whole season. It's just, I mean, I started looking into it because I was just gonna have some cliff notes for today and just move on. And I just don't think that's gonna do it justice. And I think there was stuff there that I was like, I think our listeners would be interested in. So I think that's what we're going to do there. But so just kind of leave that in the back of your mind. Do we want to say who we're going to have on the pod in 2 weeks? Or do we just want to say a really good guest?
I don't know, Clark. You made the arrangements.
Sorry about that. The music was still on for you people on YouTube. I apologize for that. If you didn't hear any of that, I'm sorry. But basically, we're just going to move the Wally Triplett stuff to next week and flesh it out more.
Yeah, and as far as the surprise guest on the internet front, on the internet front, on the podcast front, I mean, that's, it was just kind of, we were talking about some things, Corey and I, and a name came up, and we both said we think there's a decent chance this person would come on if we reached out. And we reached out, and sure enough, within really an hour, he agreed to come on. So, I don't know. What do you want? Wanna say?
I say we keep teasing, and then we'll come back and let you guys know next week.
All right. I think that'd be better too. Sounds
So
better.
very excited
Alluring.
for it, though. So that will be not next week, but the week after. Very, very much looking
Yeah.
forward to that. Okay, so that's all that good stuff. I'm so glad I remembered that. I totally forgot. We had another fan question on Instagram that I did not bring into the fan question things. Like I didn't make the graphics for, but I'm so glad I just randomly remembered that. And we do have a fan question that was submitted via Instagram. But I was going to read what he said at the beginning because I thought it was pretty nice. This is from Tyler, and he said that he drives 3 hours one way to work, and your podcast really helped pass the time. Keep up the good work. And first of all, I'm just impressed. Like a 3-hour drive one way. I mean, our podcast is perfect for Tyler.
Honestly, especially in the off season, one way wouldn't finish it some weeks. During the regular season.
Right.
Yeah, my dad has to go to Baltimore from Scranton about once a month, and that's a healthy 3.5-hour drive. But he doesn't have to do it like every day or anything crazy like that.
Right. Well, anyway, that just made me realize, like, hey, if you haven't already dropped a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, please do it. We'll read it on the show. I actually updated. If you're watching on YouTube, the little 5-star video has actually been updated. So, if you have submitted a 5-star review, it is now on that video that plays while we chit chat here from time to time. So you can look and find yourself up there if you have submitted it since August to present. It is up there. So if you haven't do that, we'll send you a sticker. We'll read on a show. We'll get on that video at some point, and we'd really appreciate it. I think we're at like 105 right now, so not bad, but want to keep them coming. So haven't had one for I think 2 weeks now. So someone go in there, take 5 seconds and read us or drop us a 5-star review. You can drop us 5-star rating on Spotify too. We'll send you a sticker for that. You just have to let us know because we don't know who does those. Okay, Sean. I called it a subtle show today. And I think that's, we're February 8th. National Signing Day was I saw somebody on I'm on like one of the Facebook football groups. Somebody said something like, "Did I miss National Signing Day? There was like no coverage about." And I was like, "That's honestly like it's funny because how innocent the question was, and like it's a good question. Like, why did we not?" But really, like that is what it is now. But anyway, that was last week, and here we are this week, and I mean, we're into the thick of it. Like we're into the thick of it. And this is like true off season right now. Like this is probably as much off season as we get, Sean, because winter workouts have started. We're going to talk about that. Media day started. We got some of the young guys in for the first time. A lot to talk about. But after this, like this week, really next week, and then it's like spring practices right around the corner. So, and we're sniffing it and we're getting ready for it. So this is as boring as we get right here, baby.
Pretty much. And, Corey brought me in around this time last year. We're coming up on my anniversary of being here. And it was around this time. And yeah, this was when, and this is when it's the slowest for Penn State in general. Like if you're a content creator out there, like, I mean, it is so easy to just pop out content all season, but these are the dog days if you're a content creator for college football, because you have to, you kind of earn your stripes right now. Because even in the summer, there's stuff to talk about because recruiting is going on, official visits are going on. So there's typically always stuff to talk about. And then in March, spring practice will be starting. April, spring practice. And then, yeah, pretty much after that, visits start and recruiting really heats up.
Yeah,
so
recruiting heats up, and we start already looking ahead to all Penn State's opponents in June, basically.
Yeah, we start previewing the season in June. So this is as quiet as it gets. And
Yeah.
if you know us, we're not going to be that quiet.
No. And Sean, do you know what day you start, like your first episode was?
I remember I just was about to go to my great uncle. He passed away almost a year ago. I was actually going to his viewing right after I got done, and that was right at the end of February. I forget the exact
Okay.
date.
We'll have to have a pizza party or something.
I'm down for another pizza party.
As many pizza parties as we can come up with. Yeah, no, and a lot of people obviously haven't been listening to us since last year, and so welcome aboard. I don't think as far 24/7 sports and on 3, they're gonna have stuff 365 days out of the year. Some other podcasts we really like, or at least I listen to, Donnie Collins. I saw he's always been once a week, but I don't know if he's going to continue throughout the whole off season or not, or if it's going to slow down a little bit. Roar Lions Roar, they switched to basketball for the most part. And then, Corey Geiger, which we gave a shout out on the YouTube simulation, but we did not give him a shout out on the podcast. But Corey Geiger shouted us out on his podcast, and that was very nice of him. And so thank you, Corey Geiger.
Yes, thank you, Corey.
Pittsburgh Sports. And he said my last name correctly. So that's always nice too.
And
but anyway,
you didn't call me like Shane Kane or something.
Shane Kane. I like Shane Kane.
A lot of teachers have thought that my parents were crackheads and named me Shane Kane, and that is not what happened. I've had so many go Shane Kane. I'm like, no, read it again.
Not even that close. No, what I was trying to get at is there's not a lot of podcasts, Penn State football specific podcasts that go 365. We are one of them, and we will continue to be one of them. So buckle in. If you're trying to find like a podcast and you're like, are they going to just dip? Are they done? Like, we're not going anywhere. So for the blog, he had one of those 5-star reviews back in, I don't know, a long time ago. And I think they summed it up best. Like, they stick it out for the whole year, and we're not going anywhere. So hopefully you guys join us as we get into things. Non-Penn State first, just because I saw it, I thought I'd just start out there because it doesn't really affect Penn State, but it is worth mentioning that the Pac-12 is looking to potentially add SMU and San Diego State. I don't know if you saw that, Sean.
I did not see that. They make a lot of sense, though. SMU is in Dallas, and then San Diego State in San Diego. So those are two big markets.
San Diego.
San Diego.
Yeah, no, and they make sense. And I don't know, from a football fan perspective, they don't make sense, right? I mean, they're not going to provide much as far as conference prestige goes. But yes, from the market standpoint, absolutely. Although you would just argue, why don't they just go get Rice or somebody else if you're going to be at it? Why don't you go get, I don't know. I don't want to go down the conference realignment talk too much, but I just wanted to mention it because, hey, USC, UCLA are coming over soon. Oh, and I should mention Texas and Oklahoma were declined to leave early to join the SEC. So they were trying to leave a year early. They're not going to be allowed to do that. So they're staying for another year. 2025, I think, is now where they're scheduled to leave. They're trying to leave earlier, and it was funny because
is that like a big deal or no?
Well, so Georgia was going to play Oklahoma in a non-conference in 2022 and 2023, I think. But then the SEC said cancel it because you're going to play them in 2024 most likely.
Gotcha. Okay.
But now they're not going to play in 2024. And so it's a little bummer from that perspective. And I might be off by a year on some of that stuff. I'm not a SEC conference expert on when they're supposed to 100% join, but they're getting lagged up by a year.
It's 25.
Thank you. I just like when you say that I'm right. That's all I have from the outside world. But I did want to start off by giving some love to running backs coach Jaywan Sider, who won the 24/7 Sports Big Ten Recruiter of the Year, which I think if you're a Penn State fan, you're like, okay, yeah, like that makes sense. Like he's excellent. He's probably Penn State's best recruiter. But then you remember who else is in the Big Ten, Ohio State, and you just think that Heartline would probably get that every year. I don't know if Heartline got it the previous year or not, but anyway, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, not just with Ohio State, like Michigan didn't have that great of a 2023 class. And so it's just another thing to put on Jaywan Sider's resume, and it's another reason for Penn State to pay the man more money. So,
Going to get hot takey.
oh yeah, I'm always ready for the hot. We got some hot takes on the show later today too from some fans.
Jaywan Sider the best recruiter on Penn State staff? Dun dun dun.
Is Penn State Jaywan Sider's best recruiter? Is
Well,
Jaywan
was
Sider Penn State
this year? Now, year in
Oh.
year out, I totally agree. He definitely is.
this year?
But there's a Mr. Troutwine who,
Yeah,
I mean, may have something to say about that. Alex Burkmeyer, Javen Williams, Jim Diono, Anthony Donka. That's pretty darn good.
that's a good point.
But
I don't know how much
I'd
he
have to look at how.
contributed.
Yeah, and I'd have to
Yeah,
look
because
at
I
how
think he helped
guys
with.
Snyder got him by himself. But
I
that's
think
some high quality.
I don't know if he helped with Burkmeyer or not, but I mean he helped with Rojas, didn't he? I feel like he was helping in the Virginia area, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, he does. And I mean, Sider, he does a lot. And, I'm just kind of being a little hot takey. And Sider he's probably almost definitely involved in more recruits than Troutwine, but just from a quality aspect, I mean, that is such a big haul for Phil Troutwine.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're going to talk about maybe not those guys as much, but the 2022 guys that are now allowed to speak to the media. They spoke with people on Tuesday, and we got some pretty good information there. So we're going to talk about those guys a little bit later in the show. I did want to mention before we talk about media day, and I guess I could throw up kind of what the schedule is going to be. But before we get to that, I wanted to mention that Penn State has 7 players going to the NFL Combine. All the ones you expect: Tig Brown, PJ Mustipher, Joey Porter Jr., Juice Scruggs, Brenton Strange, Mitch Tinsley, and Parker Washington. Well, first of all, I don't know how much Parker Washington's going to be able to do. That's my first question. Secondly, are you a little bit surprised that both Tinsley and Washington got invited?
Not really. A lot of drafts that I've seen have them both being taken in the first 4 or 5 rounds. So those two were expected.
Okay.
But I know what the big thing, the big takeaway has been from that list.
Well, let's just talk about it, right? So let's
Yeah.
talk about, was Sean Clifford snubbed from the NFL Combine? I made it very clear. That was me on Twitter, by the way, saying, yeah, he was 100% snubbed. You go through those names to just your casual fan, and they're going to be like, who, and who. Now, that isn't a judgment for what those guys are capable of doing. I think some of those guys very well could do some great things. One guy, very good Division II quarterback, has got all the size and measurables to be successful. But there are some other guys on there that are pretty pathetic. One guy from Stanford threw 13 touchdown passes and had 8 interceptions. And Stanford, by the way, was awful this past year. I just think I think they invited 13 or 14 guys. I'm not saying Sean Clifford's going to be an NFL star. I don't even know if he's going to get a job in the NFL. But there are not that many people that have at least the intangibles that he does. He's a big-time player from a big-time school. He's coming off probably his best game ever. I think it's a snubbing, Sean. I think it's 100% a snubbing. You invite 7 guys from Penn State, and like I said, it's not like Sean is expected to be this, first-round pick guy. But I think 100% he did enough. He's a well-known name enough where if he was there, people wouldn't be like, why is that guy there? They'd be like, okay, yeah, like, sure. Like, nobody would be against that. And if they were looking for ratings for the combine, people would have turned in to see what Clifford would have done. So I think 100% he was snubbed.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a snub. I will say that Cliff doesn't have the measurables that a lot of those guys do, that he has clearly better stats than. And we've talked before, the draft is a lot about measurables. And when you're a late round guy, if you lack those measurables, you're going to struggle a little bit more to get involved in the combine, get drafted. But do I think he's a better quarterback than some of those guys? Yeah, at least in college. I think that's pretty evident. And yeah, I would definitely qualify it as a snubbing. I was almost penciled him in to be invited to the combine, and I am a little surprised he's not going to be there, but it doesn't mean he's not going to get drafted either if he does well at the pro day. I mean, but it does make it, I mean, let's be real, it makes it a lot harder. He was down in the NFLPA Bowl or whatever, and I mean, reports from practice, I mean, were mixed about him, it seemed. So, I mean, and guys, I mean, you could think that doesn't mean a lot, but it does. And if you're a borderline guy and you don't perform well at the practices, yeah, there's a chance you're not going to get invited to the combine. So, I mean, and look, bottom line is, do I look at Sean Clifford and see him as a backup in the NFL? I don't. I think you have to be a pretty darn good quarterback to be one of the top 64 quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, think of guys like Teddy Bridgewater. Do I think Sean Clifford could ever be as good as Teddy Bridgewater? No, I don't. I just don't think he has it. And I don't think, believe me, Teddy Bridgewater's not that good. But comparatively, yeah, he's definitely one of the top 64 quarterbacks. But do I think Cliff should have had a shot to prove himself at the combine? I do. So it's disappointing.
We agree with that, right? It's not about what he is going to be, it's whether he deserved a shot to do it. And I get it. The combine isn't you deserve this because you did what on the field. I get that, right? But I think in certain circumstances, if a guy's on the fence, you give him the benefit of the doubt. And there's no way he wasn't a guy that was on that fence. He runs decent well. He throws decent well. He's from a big time school. He's a household name for most college football fans. Snub.
And is there a set amount of quarterbacks they need like a max?
I don't think so. I think it varies, right? Like if it's a big class, you're going to take maybe 17. Right. If it's a small class, you only take 12. And let's be honest, like the class isn't that amazing. Like, yeah, you got your Bryce Young and you got your, whoever the heck you think is his number 2. We don't think it's Will Levis, but whoever you think is up there. But then really, like, in my opinion, probably C.J. Stroud. But then it goes down, like there's just a bunch of other guys. Like there's not like a clear like first tier, second tier, third tier, and then Sean Clifford's in a fourth tier. It's like first tier, sort of a second tier, and then it just kind of like tapers off to everybody else. And you don't, arguments could be made for the rest of those guys. I will say this, Sean. I disagree with you about not being good enough to be a backup. I don't know if he's going to be a backup. I'm not going to put money on it that he'll be a backup in the NFL. So I don't necessarily disagree with that specific part, but I do disagree that he isn't as good enough to be like, I look at a Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy did not do very much more in college, and I know he's a taller dude, and I get he has some of the measurables, but he, if anything, underperformed in college. And he got a chance, and he seemed to still do okay. And I know that's an exception, but I think he could find a way just because of what he's capable of bringing with his intangibles and in the locker room. And you can bring Sean Clifford in, and you don't have to work with him as much as maybe some other rookies as far as learning the playbook. Like, are you going to be able to fix whatever his throwing mechanics are at this point? No, absolutely not. But you're also not going to probably have to go through and teach him some of the checks and teach him he's going to know some of that. So I think there's a benefit there as far as being low maintenance if you're looking for a guy like that. Maybe he's a guy because of those things that he's ready to be on the practice squad and someone picks him up in a pinch because they know he can pick up the playbook and roll with it, right? Maybe that's a role where he fills. Like when the 49ers have their 17th quarterback get injured next year, Sean Clifford's right there ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, could he be a practice squad guy? Maybe. But when I think of a backup, like a second string quarterback, yeah, I mean he's just not.
When you think of backup, you're not thinking of Brock Purdy either. Like Brock Purdy was really not a backup. He was a third string guy. Like he wasn't even supposed to be the backup.
He wasn't, but a few things with Brock Purdy. Like you said, he does have the measurables, and he was in a very quarterback friendly system in San Francisco. I'm convinced that. I mean, hey, maybe if Cliff went to San Fran, maybe it would be different. I don't know. But he is the exception and not the rule. I mean, I don't think you could get by in the NFL with intangibles, with just intangibles. I'm just not. I think you're going to be out of the league very, very fast if you're just relying on intangibles.
100%. I agree with that. 100%.
So, I mean, like I said, though, could I see him getting on a practice squad? I can. Because like you said, the one thing he does have, and this was noted at the NFLPA, is his mind. And he was one of the best in college football pre-snap last year. And that really, really helped the offense measurably. And yeah, I could see a team liking that in their scout team quarterback. It's just, making that next step, it takes a little bit more than just intangibles in your mind.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And you guys thought we were done talking about Sean Clifford.
Oh yeah, people are coming at us on Twitter again. The Clifford wars have reignited.
The Clifford
There's
Wars.
been a little skirmish.
Yeah. Look, I don't know when the Clifford Wars are going to end, to be honest with you.
Maybe they'll never end. They probably won't to a certain degree.
For some people, they definitely won't.
No, they live in those wars.
I think they got everyone else right, though, as far as the combine goes. The only other person, which I didn't think was a snub, was Nick Tarburton. I wouldn't like Nick Tarburton. Mm-hmm. I think is a good player, and I think he'll have a chance because he has a good size. He's good against the run. He actually showed he's capable in pass rushing as well. So I think there's a chance for him, right? I just got to have a good pro day, but I wasn't surprised that he wasn't invited to the combine. I mean, defensive end's not an easy position to get invited to the combine, and although he technically started he got out-snapped by Chop Robinson. So but everywhere else, I mean, Juice Scruggs got invited. Very happy to see that. I am a little surprised that both Tinsley and Washington got invited. Neither of them had incredibly amazing numbers. Washington, talk about measurables, doesn't have the size measurables to be there. I don't think he's going to run like a KJ Hamler if he was able to run, which I don't know if he's going to be able to. I don't think he'd run a KJ Hamler speed number. I don't think he's that fast. I'm a little surprised that both of them got invited. I think they both could do really well in the combine, but we'll just have to wait and see. I think Joey Porter Jr. is going to have a day. People aren't even going to be talking about what he does at the combine as much as just they're going to talk about his arms. I could just get ready for it. Like they're going to measure his arms and they're going to just talk about Joey Porter's arms for like a week, and it's going to just be fantastic.
Are you a little bit worried about how he'll run?
No, I'm not.
I am.
As I don't think, because here's the thing.
If he runs a high 4.5, that's good. That's going to hurt.
I think
I don't think he will, but I'm a little worried about it.
I think if he runs a 4.5, he's fine. 4.5, 4.55. I think that as long as he's not 4.6, he's okay. Because he's what, 6'1" or 6 flat? I don't know, 5'11", somewhere around there,
Oh,
right?
he's taller than
6.
that. Yeah, he's taller than that. He's
Okay.
6'1", 6'2". Yeah.
Okay. 6'1", with arm lengths of a guy who's 6'7". They will not care if he runs as long as he runs sub 4.6. I promise you, they're not going to care. I think he will run. And because of his height, I think he gets like he doesn't look as fast as he really is. He kind of reminds me. He kind of runs, in my opinion, like Chris Godwin, sort of. Like people underestimated how fast Chris Godwin was going to run at the combine. He ran a 4.5, I think. I think they're right about in the same speed. And so I think he's going to do fine there. And God, if he does on the field drills, I mean, I think his hips are going to look fantastic. So very excited for him. And I think Brenton Strange is going to test very well. I'm excited to see it. I don't think he's going to, I don't know if he'll put up Mike Gesicki numbers, but I think people are going to be impressed with him. I think the bench he could do really well on. I think the vert he could do really well on. I'm excited to see what Brenton Strange does, because if he showed he could block, right? So he's a guy, if he runs pretty well, his stock is gonna climb fast. Especially, like, I don't know. I'm trying to think about the tight ends that are in the draft. We're gonna talk draft a lot more. We're actually, I think, pat ourselves on the back. I think we covered the draft and the combine stuff last year very well.
We did.
And
Yeah,
I think we got a lot of it
out
right.
of the park. Yeah.
And so I'm excited to get into that conversation. So we don't have to go too far into it, but I think Brenton Strange is gonna have a day as well. Sean, you just want to just mention the other two guys, because I could talk about all of them. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I was muted.
It sounded good, whatever you were saying.
Yeah, so PJ Mustipher is obviously going to be there. I think we're all interested to see how PJ does. I think he's going to bench great. He is as strong as an ox. So I think he's going to be right up there with those guys. I wonder if he'll run. At 40-yard dashes for defensive tackle, I don't think they really mean much, but you are interested to see like what his shuttle's like. And moving side to side, so interesting to see how quick he is there. And then Tig Brown, same thing. The different thing, but you want to see his speed, you want to see how high he can jump, and the thing with him is I'm wondering how he's going to do, because I feel like he's such a gamer that he's more of a guy that's going to blow you away with what he does on the field and when you put the tape on. But I still think he's going to test well. Our guys tend to always test well. And little something, this is going to be the first time that a Chuck Losey group is going to be at the combine. So, I mean, Losey's been there for years and years, but this is his first group that he has worked with for a whole year as the head strength and conditioning guy. So going to be interested to see how all these guys do. And yeah, I think the guy who has the most to lose or gain from this, from the combine, is Brent Strange. For really the reasons Corey listed. I mean, he's somebody that I think scouts are still getting to know, because a lot of these guys were either considered as draft prospects last year, or they were guys that might have been sophomores that weren't draft eligible yet, but scouts had an eye on. Brenton Strange really didn't fit into any of that. So he's somebody who, we talk about late risers all the time out of high school. Brenton Strange was a late riser in college going into the NFL. So interested to see how he'll run. I agree with Corey. We both expect him to bench really well. We both expect him to be able to hit to jump well. So yeah, this is going to be a big test for him. And if he could kill it at the combine, you could see him maybe making a push for the top 3 rounds. In my mind.
Yep. No, I'm with you. I think he's a 3rd round guy, honestly. I haven't looked yet at who all the tight ends are, right? Like Dalton Kincaid is in there off the top of my head. But
guy from Notre Dame, yeah. Michael Mayer.
Mayer is going to be up there, but Bowers from Georgia's come back. Stover
Yeah,
from
he's
Ohio
back.
State is coming back. So there's some pretty good guys that are going to be in the next class. So I think it was a good decision by Strange to go, from that perspective too. Um, before we get into the media day aspect of things, I just wanted to plug the Penn State simulation 2022 versus 2016. All three games are on YouTube. The Penn State 2016 team won the series 2-1. So definitely check out those games. The last game was commentated by us. Looks like we're probably going to do 2005 versus 2016 next. I got rosters, and shout out to the Petit Library because that's who I got them from, which is really cool. Like I just emailed this guy and he said just create a Penn State account, and then he helped me out and he just Dropboxed all the years I wanted rosters for. He just helped me out and dropped all these rosters in. And I asked for the 1959 roster, and not a single guy was over 234 pounds. And just, I mean, we're going to be talking about these guys, these 2022 guys, but even the 2023 guys coming in, like what, probably 70% of them are over 234 pounds coming in as freshmen now. And I'm not talking about just offensive linemen. I'm talking about everybody on the 1959 team. Nobody was over 234. Offensive guard, centers didn't matter. So I thought that was funny. I wanted to share that with you guys. But eventually, I don't know. After this 1947 conversation that we're going to have next week, I think we might have to have a 1947 versus 1959 simulation in there. I think that would be kind of fun to do.
Yeah, I'd be cool with that. And it's funny, like people, just how evolution works. Like my girlfriend and I went to a Broadway show over the weekend for her birthday, and all those Broadway theaters, like the leg, if you've ever been to one, the leg room, there's zero. Like your legs are way up high, and you have like no room in the seats. And it's because all those theaters were built in the 1900s when people were smaller. Like people, and I'm not just talking about, lighter, but they were shorter. And it really shows. So looking at that old roster, I was like, yeah, this is about the era that all those theaters were built. I did find it interesting too that on the 1959 roster was former offensive coordinator for Penn State, Galen Hall. He was on the team, and Joe was one of the assistant coaches at the time. So a little fun fact there.
Yeah, all 5'9" of them. All right, let's talk media day. And I want to start with James Franklin. Sean, I'm not sure if you were able to watch it or not, but
Yep, I was.
Really the biggest thing I thought came out of Franklin's part of the presser was he straight up said, like, we got to figure out the leadership thing. He said we can't wait until the fall. We can't wait till 2 or 3 games in. We got to figure it out now. He's like, last year, everybody kind of knew who it was going to be because it was pretty much all the same guys from the previous year. I don't need to list them all. He said, we don't know really for the most part. I mean, we can assume Curtis Jacobs, and we can assume Adisa Isaac. We can assume maybe Keaton Ellis, Kalen King, maybe. And then on offense, we can assume, maybe Devon Ellies or Izzard too, defensive tackle. But then like Hunter Norzad, I heard some decent things. Is Caden Wallace going to step up? We don't know. Landon Tangwall is getting older now. Is he going to start stepping up? And then, Kevon Lee's gone. So like you have all the backs are young. And then wide receivers, it's like, well, you have Keandre Lambert-Smith, and then it's Trey Wallace. So, and then tight ends, Tyler Warren, because Brenton Strange is a big part of that. So there's a lot of question marks there. And I thought it was interesting that was something Franklin hit on early. Something that probably, as winter workouts has officially started, and everyone's saying, I love all the coaches coming out with like their who dominated the day. And it's like, just take it and run with it, boys. Like, let's overreact to this. I love it because I'm in the same boat. But I mean, it's important to kind of pay attention to some of that stuff because the guys that are getting highlighted in these winter workouts, at least some of them are probably on the short list to being those team leaders. So the final thing I have to say about that before I turn it to you is he straight up said he needs Bo Prabula and Drew Allar to step up and be leaders. He said a quarterback needs to be a leader. He says he doesn't care how young they are. So I thought that was interesting, and we'll have to kind of pay attention to that more going into this year than last year, right? We were able to assume the leadership was good, and I think, Sean, I know you agree with me. The leadership is probably the best it's been for a long time, and I think that really, after the Ohio State game, I don't know if they do what they did with previous teams, and that is win the games they're supposed to in the fashion that they did and finish out the way they did. So I think it's a big question mark going into the year that people need to discuss. I know some people, fan questions, have asked us about it. I think it's something we really need to focus in on for the next 8 months.
Yeah. I said, I think in the podcast after the Rose Bowl, when we said, all right, we'll look ahead to 2023 briefly. I said the one thing that we're going to miss most going into next year is the leadership, because pretty much every single leader in the locker room graduated or declared for the draft. And if we want to accomplish the things we're going to accomplish this year, you need good leadership. There's just no other way around it. You could have the most talented team ever, but if you have piss poor leadership, it's not going to mean anything. Now, the good thing is, I think a lot of, I think this team benefits from having great leaders last year. And you could learn from them. Like Jason Kabinda would talk about Mike Hull till he left. Like Mike Hull, he was only with for 1 year, but in Jason Kabinda's senior year, he was still referencing stuff Mike Hull told him. So that stuff matters. And when you're a young guy who has leadership capabilities himself, you're going to be like a sponge when you're a freshman, when you're a sophomore, and just learning from these guys. And then you're going to use what you learned and teach to the new guys. And that's hopefully going to be the thing that they do. I think somebody else who has a chance to step up as a leader is Chop Robinson. Like, the guys seem to really gravitate toward him. And he was a transfer this year, and he was already on a veteran laden team. So it's hard for him to really step up and be a leader, but we need him to be now. Like, first off, he's going to be one of the best players on the team. And he's playing the second or third most important position on the team. And he's going to be the best guy at that spot, at least going into the year. So he's somebody that we need. And Drew Allar, he's got to take the bull by the horns. And and you could say he's a sophomore, and that's fine. But nobody, like, Tua was only a sophomore too, and he was a great leader in his locker room. Like, guys just love Tua. Same thing with
always comes back to Tua.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, I'm one of the great college QBs ever, for sure. And then I may not like this guy very much, but Tim Tebow, like, guys just rallied around him, and he made that speech. But like, they bought into that, and it helped get them to a national championship. Like, so you have to be able to do things like that. And Trevor Lawrence won the national championship as a freshman, and nobody ever questioned his leadership abilities. So you got to be ready. That's the thing with being a quarterback that's kind of unfair in a way, is that you got to just be ready. And it's a bigger role. It's a lot on your plate early, but he didn't have to play as a true freshman. He was able to able to get his feet wet last year, but now it's time to step up and be the guy. And I know and I'm sure we're going to talk a bit about it from media day, that, Franklin didn't anoint him the starter, which is fine, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be the starter. So he's got to be preparing like that.
Yeah, I mean, he said, look, we're gonna kind of go into the clean slate, but somebody has to start first on those reps, and it's gonna be Drew Allar. So, we actually have a question about that from Dorito a little bit later on. Was there anything else you want to mention from Franklin? I thought it was a pretty. I don't want to knock the media members. I just don't. I mean, I don't really know. I think everybody was there to talk to the young guys. Like, there was questions asked to Franklin, and like someone, I think it was Geiger, asked him about signing day and all that stuff, and Franklin said, look, like we just need to be consistent with it. Like every year it's something different, it seems, and I think that's fair. But Geiger was asking, hey, if we expand the playoff, are you going to be able to do a playoff game prep and have early signing day? And I think that's a fair point. But otherwise, I thought the questions were just kind of, you know, I don't know. Questions you'd expect for February 7th. So
Yeah. I mean, they're in the same they're in the same boat as us. You're just trying to get content going in February. And I think the title of the press conference was off-season press conference. So Penn State's also acknowledging, like, yeah, well, look, freshman, and James Franklin's here. Let's ask him some questions. So it's just kind of a touching base with Coach, I really think. I do want to mention that Franklin talked glowingly a couple times about Malik McClain, and I think that's important because he said, like, he always has a smile on his face. He has such a positive attitude. And again, if you watch James Franklin's press conferences for years and years, if he's talking early about somebody who just came in or somebody who hasn't played a lot yet, that usually bodes well for him and how he's doing in preparation, and usually it bodes well for how he's going to do in the season. So he seems pretty excited about Malik McClain, and that's going to be a huge help if he could pan out for us.
yeah, that's a very good point. If since you went that way, let's just finish it off. He was also impressed with Storm Duck.
Yep.
Mentioned that he's come in, and he said from the very beginning, even when they were, recruiting him in the transfer portal, that Storm Duck was very businesslike for the entire process. He's come in and he's been businesslike, even in winter workouts in the weight room. So he said both McClain and Storm Duck had really good measurables, baseline test measurables as well. So that's very good to see too. It doesn't seem like they're having to make up any ground or anything like that. So I just think I don't know what they're doing. Every year people like freak out because Penn State doesn't jump on a guy right away, typically in the transfer portal. And then typically it comes out the other end and you're like, yeah, they kind of nailed it every single time. And I know it's early, Sean, but I really think McClain and Duck are going to be two guys. You're like, yeah, they got that right. And McClain has 2 years, so it doesn't even have to be an immediate impact with him. But I have a feeling it might be.
Yeah, I have a feeling it might be too. Because he's going to be the one tall non-tight end target that we have, and we haven't had that the past couple of years. And it's extremely beneficial to be able to throw it up to a guy who could run and have faith that he's going to bring it down. Like, one of the reasons I always flip out about the wide receiver fades in the corner of the end zone is we don't have the receivers to run plays like that. And when you're throwing them to KJ Hamler or Jahan Dotson or even Parker Washington, yeah, they're not going to catch those. But I won't be as upset if I see it towards somebody like Malik McClain, because he has the potential to be able to go up there and moss someone.
Are you officially on record for saying you're okay with goal line fades?
With somebody like Malik McClain, assuming he doesn't have Butterfingers, yes.
Okay, it's going to hold you to that.
I'd still rather run other things, but I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for those guys. Okay. I guess I should just say to cover it. Someone asked, I want to say it might have been T. Frank. I don't know who it was. Asked about Stubblefield. He said not the right time or place. Very excited about Marcus Hagans. The more and more we read into it, the more and more it just seems like a Kirk Shiraka, Mike Yursich kind of hire fire thing. It just seems like it was a, hey, you're good, Stubbs, but you're not Marcus Hagans, and we really want Marcus Hagans, so we're just gonna make it happen. I mean, it's just kind of the vibe I'm getting, Sean. Um, and obviously, Coach Poindexter very much probably vouching for him too.
T. Frank should just continually ask Franklin, is it the right time yet to talk about Stubbs? Every press conference.
Yeah,
Can we
I
talk
think.
about him now?
I mean, if it wasn't the right time on February 7th, it's hard to imagine as you get further and further away, it's going to become more the right time.
Yeah,
But
I love answers like that. Like, okay, next press conference, is it going to be the right time to talk about what happened with Stubbs?
yeah, that's going to be one of those. It's not the right time because it's never the right time, Sean. Is is the answer to that one. But otherwise, we got to hear from Marcus Hagans, and Marcus Hagan, he said straight up, look, I'm a quieter guy. He's like, I'm not going to yell at the guys, and that's just kind of how he rolls. He seems pretty. I don't want to use the word nonchalant because I feel like sometimes that has poor connotation, but he seems laid back. He seems chill. I'm very excited to see him on the field and what he's going to be able to do for these guys. But I really think it's going to be. I think he's going to have fun coaching with Coach Poindexter again. He he almost got through the press conference without mentioning him, and then he mentioned him at the end and talked about him at the end. I'm like, yeah, there's no way he was going to get to the press conference and not talk about Anthony Poindexter. So, but I didn't think there was anything crazy that came out of it. I just think it's like, hey, catching up to speed. A lot of things I got to learn. Everyone's been friendly. Everyone's been nice. Everyone's made my life easy. But it's time to hit the road and time to get going. I think that was your typical stuff there, Sean.
Yeah. He seems like a cool customer, which is nice, and that's fine. And he got asked about having a fresh start after what happened at Virginia. I thought he gave a nice answer on that. He's like, there's no fresh start. When you think about I want to get this right. I think 3 people were killed in that shooting, 3 of his players. And he's like, those are 3 families that aren't going to get their kids back. So he said that's really not the right term to use. And I thought he handled the question well. And it shows, and it's where he came from. And yeah, he just seems like a cool customer to me, and I think he's going to be a big help in recruiting. Little recruiting news: Keelan Adams, Penn State made his top 4, and Marquise Hagans is going to be instrumental in potentially bringing him on board. And he is from the Virginia Beach area, I believe. So that's an area that Penn State hasn't recruited that well in the past. We've recruited Virginia well, but not that particular part well. So hopefully, having Hagans there could help us reel him in.
Yeah, I think Keelan Adams already had a relationship with Hagan specifically, and already liked Penn State. So it seems like a match made in heaven. But we'll see about that. I'm feeling good about that one. Yeah, that I agree with everything you said. I don't even need to say anything else. Let's talk media day, because this is the first time that the 2022 class was able to speak with the media. I think a couple of them got to speak for the Rose Bowl, but for the most part, this is the first time most of them got to speak with the media. I guess they brought them out like 10 at a time or something like that, or 5. I don't know how they did it, but I guess we'll start with Drew Allar, because that's what everyone's going to want to talk about first. From what I'd heard, a couple of reporters just stayed with Drew Allar for the entire time and just hung out with him, which I get it, right? Like, people want to know about the starting quarterback and everything about the starting quarterback. And on 3, T. Frank and them said that, hey, he handled the interviews and all that stuff really well. He said that at this point, Chris Peterson and company do a good job training these players into what they're supposed to say and what they're not supposed to say. And it already seems like Drew Allar's gotten that down pretty well. And he knows also that certain questions are going to be asked twice, especially in a setting like that where somebody walks away or goes and meets with somebody else and then comes back. They don't know what's been asked. And again, this is February 7th, grasping at straws, but it seemed like he showed patience and resolve when it came to those things. So take that for what you will. I can't even not take that seriously. But I didn't think there was anything crazy that came out of it. I think Corey Geiger tweeted that Drew Allar gave up baseball freshman year of high school, but he was throwing 86 miles an hour as a freshman. Again, take that for what you will. If I could throw an 86-mile-an-hour fastball as a freshman in high school, I would not be playing football. Just my personal take on that. But I'm glad Drew Allar decided to play football because I sure wouldn't have been, because I could have just thrown fastballs and made millions and never got hit by a 275-pound man.
Doesn't mean you could throw strikes, though.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point, Sean. That was the most baseball coach answer ever right there. Yeah, no, I don't honestly want to talk about Drew Allar as much as I want to talk about the other quarterback, Sean. But did you hear
Cliff?
anything else? No, not Cliff. Did you hear anything else about Drew Allar that you wanted to mention?
No, I pretty much agree with everything you said. Like, to be it's kind of it's a bit of an art to be able to handle the media as a college player, especially because like you are so coached on these things. Like every single player that you see, if you think, wow, like that player sounds a lot like this guy, and there's such a thing as sounding like a Penn State guy. Well, it's because they're all taught to sound that way. I mean, do their personalities all come through? Yeah. Like KJ Hamler had a personality, and there was no just holding that personality in. But they try to do that the best they can. So you're not speaking out of turn, so you're not running your mouth too much about important things. So I totally understand why they do it. And it's hard to be able to, say to an 18 to 23-year-old, hey, just go up there, speak your mind, say what you think, because things are going to get messy fast. So there's good reason why they're coached so well. But yeah, I thought Allar handled the press conferences fine. I mean, and yeah, if you want to get into Bo, we could do that.
Yeah, I've heard, Bo, not just from things I've read, but I've heard from others as well now. And I don't like using this early comparison because I think it's lazy, but he keeps getting the Trace comparisons, Sean. He really does. Even when talking with him, he's getting these comparisons. Spunky is the word I was given. I take it for what you will. The bottom line is it's pretty much, I would say everyone agrees, and I've read this too, that they're almost sad that Bo and Drew came in the same class, because it's just he's probably not getting as much attention as he deserves. And who knows, right? Like Drew technically could only have 2 years left, and that still gives Bo Pribula 2 years to be a starting quarterback, which, and nowadays that's a lot of time. Like if you're gonna be a starting quarterback for 2 years, that's more than most quarterbacks honestly get. So, it's weird to realize that Drew Allar could play 2 years as a starting quarterback at Penn State, and Bo Pribula could still play 2 years as a starting quarterback at Penn State. Isn't that kind of funny how that works?
It is. And Joel Klatt pointed out he was actually just talking about Penn State and how we've recruited our state better the last 2 years. And in the age of the transfer portal, he made this point that it's as important as ever, because let's say, like, take Christian Bayer, for example. Now, no hard feelings against Bayer at all. Don't blame him at all for transferring out. But he's going to be less inclined to stick around at Penn State because he didn't grow up a Penn State fan. He grew up in Canada. So he doesn't have that connection to Penn State that a guy like Brooke Prabula has. And I think a guy like Prabula could say, okay, Drew Allar is the best quarterback prospect Penn State has had, or could be the best quarterback Penn State prospect has had since Kerry Collins. I'm okay with waiting until my redshirt junior year to start, and I can see what happens then. And I think a guy like Bo Prabula is the perfect type of guy to maybe want to wait around for that. And I mean, and we it's fair to say we don't know how good he's going to be, but I hear the same thing Corey hears, and that's that he's kind of like a taller Trace. He has that it factor to him. He has that moxie to him to be able to, that you feel good with him as your quarterback. And I think that's something that that Trace might have had over McGloin, or not McGloin. Yeah, not McGloin, because I thought moxie, and I remember the one broadcast, Herb Street used the word moxie like 90 times to describe McGloin. But the kind of moxie that McSorley had. Cliff just didn't have that. In a lot of people's eyes.
You trying to start the Clifford Wars again?
Yeah, here I am inflaming the Clifford Wars that we're trying to have a peaceful end to.
Look what you did. You said the Clifford Wars, and my dog comes running in here. I know. He brought up the Clifford Wars again. Can you believe that?
But yeah, having those intangibles, and I mean, he's taller than McSorley. He's 6'2", and that's and Trace is 6 foot on a good day. I had a history class with him when he was the backup, and I'm a solid 5'11", and we're about the same height. So yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought, but yeah, I think you all know where I'm coming from.
Yeah, Andrew Redding and 12 Lionheart are on YouTube. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. And 12 Lionheart says, Drew was so quiet this time last year. He said playing Madden helped to bring him out of his shell, per Zane Durant. So no idea if 12 Lionheart is true there, but that sounds very realistic because Madden does bring out the best or the worst in you. We don't have to talk about every single person like we just did with those two guys, but I wanted to talk about Abdul Carter for sure. I'm not going to tell you who told me this because I don't have permission to say who it was. But they were very impressed with Abdul Carter. Very, very impressed with Abdul Carter. I just want to make sure I get this right. Has a swagger and confidence about him I haven't seen in a long time. He's not obnoxious, but you can tell you can tell he just thinks differently. I'm not saying he's brilliant, but he knows that he is good, that he just has a different aura about him. Very comfortable in his skin and his abilities. And then this is my favorite quote of all. Quote, "Oh man, he might end up being the best number 11 yet." End quote. So that doesn't just make you salivate. I don't mean
them big words right there.
It is. I mean, that's for February 8th. That's some big time words there. And I don't think I shared that with you earlier, Sean, because I wanted to see your face now. And that's from somebody who's watched a lot of Penn State football in their day.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, man, we've said before, he's the best freshman linebacker ever at Penn State. And that's really... Now, the older guys, yeah, they didn't really play when they were freshmen under Joe. The older guys. But he's better than Posluszny was, than Navarro Bowman, than LeVar. Any of those. Micah, he's better than those guys were. So... I mean, is it conceivable? Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is. And one thing you've heard a lot from Franklin, and it's just being confirmed by what the media saw, is Abdul Carter had that business-like approach since he walked on campus, in that he seemed different than a regular freshman. And I mean, the guy he's literally the type of guy that had a weights, he had his weights set up in his living room. Like, that's dedication right there. Like, he had that approach from such a young age, and that's something you're just kind of born with. Like, you just have that work ethic, and you want to be great, and you have, and you gotta want it. And Abdul Carter is a guy who wants it, and it didn't have to be taught to him to want it. He was just born that way. So, yeah, this could be a really special guy for us, and y'all should be really excited about him.
Just a couple other quick thoughts. Vega Ione, very good character, high character guy. Think he could be a fun guy. This person didn't get this exactly, but I'm starting to picture like an Angelo Mangiero type persona there, perhaps, for anyone that knew Angelo Mangiero. Drew Shelton, very much impressed, very sharp. Was told very, very, and it makes sense. I mean, if you're going to be a true freshman and start what, 5-6 games, you kind of have to be, and he proved that. James Franklin also mentioned that, like, a lot of freshmen say they want to play, but they don't do the things necessary to play as freshmen. So wanted to share that too. There's a bunch, but I really want to mention two more, because I think there's two guys that aren't discussed very much. And one is Christian Driver, who switched over to wide receiver this past couple months. Very smart kid. That's where he probably should have been from the beginning. I just think you should keep an eye there. And I don't know where that whole wide receiver room is going to end up, but Sean, I got a feeling it's just a mess right now. And I think anyone who thinks they know what the depth chart's going to look like come the fall has absolutely no idea. There's just you can try to pencil in a guy who's, a Dante Cephas in as a number one. You could try to pencil in a Malik McLean or a Keandre Lambert-Smith or a Trey Wallace or an Amari Evans or a Caden Saunders. I mean, you can go down the list, right? I just think there is a lot. And when you bring in a new wide receivers coach, you kind of have to wipe everything clean and just say, okay, like, impress me. So I think Christian Driver is a guy to really pay attention to. I think, this is just speculation now at this point, but I just feel like he's at home where he's supposed to be. So keep an eye on him. And then one more guy that I know we don't talk about nearly enough, and that's Mekhi Flowers, who, defensive back, didn't play very much. He kind of came in, and some people maybe didn't have the best thoughts about him. Maybe, he was a little rough around the edges. Complete 180, apparently. Complete 180. It was completely changed that around. Very respectful in the interviews. And I think there was a little bit of a, like, we're here now kind of thing for him. I think once he got here, there was a realization that, this is Penn State football. This isn't just high school football anymore. Like, these guys can hit back. And the only proof I have of that is if you go to our TikTok, because I still have it on our TikTok, is in the summer camp when Katron Allen ran him over. And I don't know if you can have any more of a physical, literal awakening. Like, you can have a figurative one, right? You can wake up in the middle of the night and have an epiphany. But, physically getting run over and then seeing your, having watched the film, that changes you, right? I mean, it does, not even if it's in football itself, but whatever you do in your life, whatever the equivalent of getting run over is, it kind of puts everything in perspective. And I think that may have happened for Flowers. I'm very excited because I think Flowers has some four-star guy has some serious potential to be a stud, and just keep an eye on him.
I've had days where I felt like I just got ran over by Katron Allen, so I think I mentally relate. I've had a couple this month already, so I mean, yeah. But honestly, like Mekhi Flowers, Mekhi Flowers is always going to hold a special spot in my heart already before he's even done anything at Penn State, and that's because in the state playoffs, his junior year, it might have been his senior. I think it was his junior year though. I think he had one more year of eligibility, and he was already committed to Penn State at the time. They were playing a team called Old Forge in the state playoffs. And Old Forge, for those of you, if you're in the Valley, you know who Old Forge is. And I guarantee you do not like Old Forge. Like they're kind of they're kind of a rough school. Like they're proud of that. Like they kind of a rough rider mentality to them. And Mekhi Flowers had the game-winning catch in the state playoff game over Old Forge. So sometimes you might just hear me refer to Mekhi Flowers as Old Forge's dad. So those of you who don't live in the Valley, you won't get that. But those of you who do, you'll know. So, yeah, and I really liked him coming in because he had that personality of being, maybe a little rough around the edges and things of that nature. And he was a very good high school receiver. But yeah, and he's somebody that I said has a chance to play, that I think could have a chance to play next year. And then who else? You mentioned Christian Driver. Yeah, and Christian Driver supposedly really wanted to play receiver coming in. And Penn State tried to make him in a defensive back, but if your heart's not into a position, you're not going to be very good at it. And I don't think his heart was ever in it to be a defensive back. I think he wanted to be a receiver. And I agree with what Corey said. Like, that receiving room, I'm probably the most interested to see that one during the blue-white game. I want to see how the receivers are. I want to see what their depth chart is like, and who's got a hot hand. I want to see how Malik McLean's playing. Now, it's important to note that Dante Cephas will not be there for the blue-white game, but you're going to have everybody else there, and I think you're going to have a better idea of what's going on there after the blue-white game, provided there aren't a ton of injuries.
Yeah. I really liked him coming. I mean, think about, give credit to Kevin Winston Jr. for what he did, because I didn't think, if I had to choose between those two guys, I thought Mekhi Flowers was going to play more. So, I mean, you got to feel really good about that moving forward. Those are the biggest things I had taken away from that. Obviously, people are going to keep writing stuff. People aren't going to dump all of it. I did briefly talk to Audrey Snyder, try to get some inside information from her, and she didn't give me anything. In fact, all she did, and I'll say this because it's a free plug for her. She said, "Sounds like you'll want to read the 2022 class survey tomorrow. It was worthwhile availability for sure, especially this time of year." So, free plug for the Athletic. And Sean, I feel like we haven't done this for a while, and I just feel like, again, we get some inside information on our own, but not a bunch. Like some of the stuff I was just talking about a little bit ago was, in a way, secondhand, but specifically just to me, it wasn't from a site. But we also do get that site information. We don't share the stuff behind the paywall with you guys. But we will say, if you listen and watch most places, you pick up on a lot of the stuff, whether it's 24/7 Sports or On3 on YouTube. There's stuff that gets leaked low key if you're listening and watching, and we pick up on a lot of that as well. So we very much recommend, you check out 24/7 Sports, consider subscribing there, and the same with On3 as well. We really like Audrey, and and what she does at The Athletic. I don't know if she won the award. I think she won the award for Pennsylvania Sports Writer, I think.
She did. Yep.
So congratulations to her there. But we really like her stuff. Obviously, Audrey, Donnie Collins, with the Scranton Times-Tribune. Both of them came on the show. And so obviously we don't invite people on a show that we don't like. We obviously haven't invited on the show everyone that we do like either. But I just think it's good to remind everyone, like, you know, where we're getting the information from some of the time, where I guess where the shortcomings are, but also like who we recommend, because there's a lot of crap out there, and I think it's worthwhile. I think a lot of people listen to us, and I think it's worth sharing at least where we'd like to go, I guess, and who we recommend. Maybe one or two people care.
No, I mean, you know, the thing is, guys, there are a lot of, I mean, are there people on the beat that I'm not crazy about? Yeah. But like, there are good reporters on the beat, and there's a reason why they've been on it so long. And Donnie and Audrey, I mean, honestly, if you asked me, even before we knew them, you know, somewhat personally, who the best writers are, I mean, they'd be right at the top of the list. And I got to say, everybody who we've come in contact with, either on Twitter or, you know, DMs or whatever, everybody on the Penn State beat has been incredibly friendly to us. So we're really grateful to that, because you never know, like, they could just be like, oh, who are these guys? But that they've really been, if we had questions or anything like that, they've promoted some of just our tweets, like, and that goes a long way, like getting, you know, your tweets promoted or just getting a retweet, like, and, you know, we couldn't appreciate it enough.
Yeah, Rich, Corey Geiger,
Yep.
Ben Jones, Roar Lions Roar, although they're, you know, they're on the beat. They're not on the beat. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if they show.
Did they have reporters at their stuff, at Penn State stuff?
I don't know. Maybe they did. I don't know if they do anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Then they're maybe like us. And, you know, it goes a long way to help each other out, because a lot of people are not on our beat, not on Penn State's beat, but just around that. They're just kind of in it for themselves, and they're not going to help anybody else. But you have to help people out, especially people just getting into it for the first time.
Bill DeFilippo. I just wanted to say
Yeah.
his name right, because I said it so wrong when we had him on the show. And I practice it, and I'm just so mad about that still to this day.
I think it's DeFilippo.
DeFilippo?
I think
Bill
so.
DeFilippo? Yeah, still can't say it right. Anyway, I don't have any more to add to that now, as far as Media Day stuff goes. Do you have anything else, Sean?
No, I think we covered that pretty well.
Okay. Are you ready for fan questions then?
Yeah, do you want to do our questions first, or wait till later?
Yeah, we can do our fan questions first.
Well, I'll give you time to think, Corey.
No, actually, I had one for you too. Now, and like I really did, and now I got to remember it real quick, because it was.
Yeah, we can come back to it. That's okay.
No, you go first, and maybe it will
right.
lodge me, because I really did. I was like, oh, that would be a good one, and.
All right. So my question really isn't about Penn State. It's about, what would your recommendation be to somebody just getting into podcasting?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
We could just become one of those people on YouTube that tell other people how to do YouTube stuff.
People do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it works out really well for them.
Make money from it too.
Yeah. Just completely change the brand. Hardcore YouTubers. Yeah, that's a good question. So just to give people a background here, people think this is our first year doing Penn State football coverage, and I guess it kind of is, right? But I had a podcast that was just hardcore college football. I know I'm very original. And that was before COVID hit. That was 2019. I started that in like October, and it was, you know, nothing as what we got going on here. Shout out to Ron Redden, though. Ron Redden, who works for ESPN. He was on quite a bit. I don't even know if I'm not probably allowed to say that. Anyway, and it was fine. It was good. We, got a little decent popularity. Grew the Twitter a little bit. Had fun with it, but just it was hard to do all college football. I mean, that's just a lot. And I was really trying. It was just hard to cover everything. You just can't really do it justice with just an hour or two a day or a week. So anyway, did it, was fun, but realized I just like Penn State football that much more than college football, which is fair. It's a realization I think a lot of Penn State fans have when they're watching the Army Navy game every year. No, I don't know, but and so I've been doing it for a decent amount of time now, and so I guess I do have some thoughts on it. I guess the biggest thing to me, Sean, is you just got to kind of do it and consistently do it. Shia LaBeouf style, Shia LaBeouf. Just do it. No, but you really do. You gotta hit record and you just gotta go with the flow and try to do it as consistent as you possibly can. When we were going to the YouTube stuff, it was like, okay, we're gonna do the YouTube stuff. Well, we do it. We gotta do it. Like we're not gonna just. And there's people probably don't know this, but we were kind of waiting. We are gonna wait for a year before we started on YouTube, and we were like, no, let's do it. And we've been able to stick with it. But I was concerned about it. I was like, are we going to consistently be able to pull it off? Because we had only consistently been podcasting just once a week for 6 months. So then it was, okay, we're going to go to 2 shows a week and we're going to put it on YouTube. Like, is that going to be too much? And so I think it's important to figure out what your bandwidth is. And once you figure that out, stick with it. So don't go crazy. Don't try to do way too much at first. Don't try to do everything at once. Just make sure you're hitting record consistently, whatever that is, once a day, once a week, once a month, once a year, whatever. Probably don't recommend the once a year, but just be consistent with it and just enjoy it. If you feel like it's a job, then that's not the whole point. You're not going to make money out of podcasting. I mean, we haven't made $1 yet. Shout out to anyone who wants to sponsor us. So if you're trying to do it for that, forget about it. But if you enjoy it and have fun, you find a decent co-host that puts up with you, go for it.
Who would that guy be?
We just got a subscriber. Thank you to DPW140. So maybe we should just go. Maybe we should just go to the YouTube, how to podcast. I don't know.
Yeah, we're picking up subscribers here. Yeah. So I also started a podcast a long time ago. It was right before COVID started. It was a political podcast. So I've done sports and I've done politics. I much prefer sports. I don't think I'd be able to do a politics podcast once a week because I tried it. And it's kind of depressing because the world is kind of depressing. And sports, I mean, I love talking about them. And if I had to give advice, it would be similar to what Corey said. And if you have to just stick with it. You have to keep doing it. And don't look at your numbers, especially at first. You could, but don't get discouraged. Because odds are you're only going to have, in the first few podcasts, you're not going to have much more than about 30, 40, 50 people listening. And that's okay. That's what happens at first. When I first came on, our numbers were nowhere near where they are right now. But you stick with it. You keep doing it. And if you do good work, the numbers will come. People will find you. And especially if you're putting yourself out there on social media, if you're promoting it, if you're doing the promotion, if you're putting good work out, you're going to have people come back to you. And that's really the big thing, is just keep doing it, keep promoting yourself, stay seen. And yeah, I think that's really what it is. And also I recommend getting a co-host, because the pod just does a lot better with somebody else there. I've always preferred having a co-host to doing a solo act. I mean, Mike and the Mad Dog are legends, but listening to Mike Francesa's solo it ain't the same. Maybe that, and Big Mike, he's a legend, but he needed the Mad Dog there. And I think just the conversations go better, and it's good to hear two people's voices instead of just one for an hour or two.
Yeah, 100%.
Better for the listener.
We got that 1 5-star review a couple weeks ago saying that sounds like we're just sitting at a bar and at Champs or something when he listens to our podcast. So, yeah, man, I really wish I could remember what my question was because it was juicy, and now it is 100% gone. I don't have it. I'm really upset. It's a really good one. I will say this and ask you. Simple question. Best kickoff time for a Penn State game that you're going to?
Ooh, that I'm going to. That changes things. 6 o'clock. So there's very rarely a 6 o'clock game. I think Notre Dame was in 2007. And full disclosure, I've never been to a 6 o'clock game. But if I were to pick one, it would be that. And that's because you just... All right, so I guess I won't do 6 o'clock. I'll do 3:30 because if you're... So it's funny the way Penn State is situated in the state and that it's about 2 hours away from everything. Like between my girlfriend grew up in Pittsburgh and then I'm from Scranton, and State College is smack dab in the middle of both of them. So everybody's about 2 hours away from Penn State. So the reason I would say 3:30 is you get out of the game around, because college football games take forever. You walk out of Beaver Stadium a little after 7. By the time you get to your car, it's about 7:30-ish. If you want to have a beer, you're getting out of the lot about 8. So you're home around 10:30, depending on traffic. That's fine with me because you have time to tailgate before the game. You could have a beer after, and you're still home in time for the 11 o'clock news if you're into that kind of thing. 8 o'clock. I mean, 8 o'clock games are super fun. Not gonna lie, but I mean that drive back from State College between 12 and 2:30 in the morning, it's a killer, especially if you're the one driving. And it's still very close though, because the day leading up to an 8 o'clock game is so fun. Now, if you lose an 8 o'clock kick, I mean, you just feel like you got kicked in the gut like 7 times because, it's first off, it feels like Sunday as soon as the game ends. And if you're already starting to think about work on the way home if you lose. So that's kind of an added just insult to injury. So my answer would be 3:30, but I would strongly consider 8. Noon games I really don't like at all.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think 1 8 o'clock game a year is important, but yeah, for the most part, I would definitely go with 3:30. And every once in a while they have those when Fox has those 4 o'clock kicks, I think those are even better if you can get a 4 o'clock kick.
Those are cool, yeah. Those are cool.
But those don't. I really thought the Ohio State game might be that 4 o'clock kick because I want to say they did a 4 o'clock kick at Ohio State in 2017 before the World Series.
They did.
And I thought that'd be perfect again. Like you would keep but it didn't happen. This question's from Instagram, so we do not have it up on the screen, so I'm not going to throw over to it. This is from Tyler. He says, I have an option to go to any home Penn State game this upcoming season. I'm looking at the month of September as it is not too cold. I thought of you when he said that, by the way. And there are 2 great options. If you had to choose, would you go to the West Virginia or Iowa game this year, and why? I thought that was a fantastic question, actually. I thought that was a really good question. So thank you, Tyler, for that question. I'll go first, and I will just tell you to go to the Iowa game.
I knew you were going to say that.
And here's why. I think there's going to be some hatred in the air, people. I think it is going to be, I don't care how bad Iowa is. If you hadn't heard the news about Iowa, they gave their offensive coordinator, who's the son of Kirk Ferentz, Brian Ferentz, reduction in pay and basically a new contract that he has to, his offense has to score 25 points per game. They were like 114th or something in the country last year in points per game. And 25 points per game, by the way, would only put them at like, I don't know what it was still not very good at all. Like most teams are averaging in the 30s nowadays.
Yeah, it was decent in like 1974.
Yeah. And anyway, it was hilarious that the bar is set that low for the Iowa offense. But of course, what happened in 2021 and just how, Kirk Ferentz handled all that with the injuries, all that shenanigans, the guy faking the arm injury in the crowd. I'm telling you, there's going to, and I think, to be honest with you, I think James Franklin's going to be fired up about this one too. I mean, this is one of those games where James Franklin's icing the kicker with 3 seconds left to preserve a shutout kind of thing. Like, he's going to be fired up about it. I think the fans are going to be fired up about it. It has a high potential to be the whiteout this year because of where the Michigan game falls in November. We'll have to wait and see on all that, of course. But I would be going to that Iowa game, and it's probably not. If you can get tickets sooner than later, figure it out because I think it's going to get expensive, especially obviously if it is the whiteout. And I think it's going to be fun either way. I'm jacked up for it, and it's February because I'm gonna be honest with you, Sean. You think rivalries in the Big Ten, and I don't know if it's just because I've been watching a little bit more wrestling this year, and I don't know what it is, but I would honestly say right now, if I had to choose a rivalry for Penn State, I would say Iowa, at least for myself. So for Tyler, I would be going to the Iowa game. West Virginia, we have no idea where they're going to be. I don't know how they're going to be worse than last year. And I think it's going to, opening games are always fun. There's a lot of optimism in the air. Life is good. No one's lost yet. Everyone has all their goals in front of them. So you can't go wrong there. But, man, I'd be going to that Iowa game.
I knew Corey was going to say Iowa because I think Corey has a picture of that guy holding the arm. I think he has it on a dartboard that he just throws at every single day. Yeah, Corey hates Iowa like I hate Notre Dame. And I appreciate a good hatred. I love that. So I would say West Virginia. And the reason I'd say West Virginia, and I hear what Corey's saying, because I think the Iowa game is going to be uber fun to go to, and I hope I'm able to get to it, is the reason I would say West Virginia is it's the first time we played them in almost 30 years. And I think the history there is pretty cool between us. They're an old rival, and we have if you've ever, I remember driving from State College to Indianapolis, and it feels like you're in West Virginia pretty quick. So it's close, it's kind of that old-fashioned regional rivalry. And I just think it's going to be cool. I think it's going to be cool to reunite with them. And that's really my whole perspective. And it's right in the beginning of September, so it's not going to be cold.
Yeah.
All right, so that's a little joke. But
I will say this. 12 Lionheart, by the way, a while back, like 20 minutes ago, said Old Forge Pizza, though, Sean.
Old Forge Pizza is good. I'll give them that.
I missed that. Nate Will says that the Iowa game potentially could be. Oh, first of all, he says the Iowa game in 2021 he thought was at 4:00, which I think that was right, actually, now that I think about it. Yeah, it definitely was it was an afternoon game for sure. But then he says that the Iowa game in September is likely to be a Fox Big Noon kick, which would kind of stink. However, I also heard that there's potential for the West Virginia game to be the NBC primetime game, which would be pretty cool. If that's going to be a night game against West Virginia compared to a Fox noon kick against Iowa, that might lean me into the West Virginia game. So
that would be cool.
If it's a West Virginia game to open the year at night, I'm trying to think. We're actually going to talk about season openers. Obviously, the Purdue game was at night, but that doesn't really count because it's on the road at Purdue, and it was on a Thursday. When's the last time Penn State opened at home for a primetime game
I think I might know the answer, and I think I was there. 2001 Miami.
Was that the last time?
I think it is. Yeah, primetime game. That was the game that Adam Talaferro ran out on the field. So it's pretty awesome. Now the game was not awesome, even though that was probably the best team I've ever seen in person. Even though I was only a little kid, it was not fun being on the receiving end of a beatdown from the 0-1 Miami Hurricanes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any, but I don't think so. Like after that game, for the most part, there wasn't a ton of very good opening Penn State home openers. Make sure I say that right. But that would be phenomenal if West Virginia's at night. So we'll keep that in mind. Lots of questions coming in. Yes, DPW hit it on the head perfectly. He said Sean's answer is kind of a perfect transition to the draft topic, and he put ellipses. I'm like, yeah, I was thinking the same thing, DPW. We got one more fan question and a couple.
What do you mean the draft talk?
Draft topic tonight.
Oh, right. Yep.
I was like, you did prepare for the draft tonight, right? Because I'm about to blow you out of the water. Which, by the way, they finally agreed. I won a draft. It is approved, stamped of approval by Joe and Dani on Twitter. So I guess it's 2-1. Sean's in a lead there. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say there. Andrew Redding said the same thing about the Fox Noon stuff. Lionheart says time to drop the hammer on Iowa, 70-3. Was that the first night game in Beaver Stadium?
It was the first game. I don't know if it was the first night game, but I do know it was the first game with the luxury boxes and the upper deck and the other upper deck above the south end zone. I do know that.
Look at Sean pulling up the facts.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. I have one more question from Dorito, and I guess I'll cut off the recording after that, and we'll show some bold predictions. There's actually one bold prediction I really do want to show you. So, let me pull up Dorito's question here. See if we can get that up. That's what she said. There we go. From Dorito Bandit, a.k.a. Andrew Redding, who's in YouTube right now. Franklin is often intentionally vague, but based on what we heard yesterday, do you feel like the gap between Drew Allar and Bo Pribula is much smaller than what most would expect? Is there any chance we see a different QB1 than what we as fans have anticipated for the past year? Is there any chance, Sean?
I don't think so. But I mean, I think Franklin is trying to make sure that Allar doesn't get too big of a head, which is smart. And these guys are in practice with each other, so they know what the story is. And Drew Allar will know if Bo Pribula is closing in on him, or if he's not. But yeah, I think Franklin was right to approach it that way for two reasons. Number one, it keeps Pribula involved because you don't want him just sitting around for 2 years, like not looking to get better, because if all goes well, yeah, I would like him to potentially be the starter in 2025. And I know 2025 sounds a long way away, but I mean, it really isn't. And it keeps him engaged, and he's only a hit away from playing. So you have to make sure that he's continuing to work on his craft and get better. And it pushes Allar to be better because the gap, could close quick. And while I think Drew Allar is probably, I think he's the real deal based on what we've read, in that I think he's going to at least be a really good college quarterback. I don't think there's all that much of a chance of Bo Pribula starting against West Virginia, barring injury.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think it is closer though than what a lot of people think, but I don't know that it's that close. Is that? Can you say it that way? Is
Yeah,
that fair?
yeah. Like if let's put it this way: if in let's use Madden terms, if Drew Allar, and I'm not saying he is, but if he's like a 95 and Bo Perbula is an 89, I mean 89 is still pretty good in Madden, but he's still not really close to Allar. So I think that's kind of a good way to put it. That's a really optimistic way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for the question, Jerry. We did not get very many questions this week, so we appreciate that. Again, if you're not following us on Twitter, Hardcore PSUFB, that's the easiest place to drop your questions to us. But obviously, like Tyler did this week, you can message us on Instagram or message us on Facebook too. We'll get them in there somehow, some way. Thank you guys. I do have. Ooh, ow! It's like destroyed my foot somehow on something down here. Ow!
On what? Attack?
No, no, I just like bent my foot incorrectly.
Oh, jeez.
Speaking of Dorito, let's show his bold predictions. Which, to be honest with you, I think we gotta start going towards the route of bold predictions that you would put money on. I think is what Josh Pate does, but something that kind of gets you closer to reality here. And maybe I'm just being wrong. Maybe Dorito actually thinks this way, but he's got bold prediction number 1. Nick Singleton is invited to New York, ultimately finished second in Heisman. Bold prediction number 2, Drew Allar sets a single season record for touchdown passes at Penn State. Bold prediction number 3, Penn State scores 35 or more in every single game.
So where's the national championship party going to be, Dorito? No, I mean it could happen. You never know. Could be a really high-powered offense.
I got a question for you, Sean.
Yeah.
These bold predictions are so big it's coming out of my graphic. If Penn State scores 35 points this upcoming season against Ohio State, no, let's flip it the other way. Against Michigan, since Michigan's a reigning Big Ten champion. If Penn State scores 35 points against Michigan, do they win?
Yeah.
What about Ohio State?
Maybe. The thing with Ohio State is that makes them different from Michigan. But, I mean, at the same time, you don't know how this offense could be different than we're used to in the past. Usually you say, like every year of my life, you always say pretty much, you don't want to get into a shootout with Ohio State. But maybe we have the horses this year that we're comfortable being in a shootout with them, and we just don't know yet. But Michigan, just because I always know what I'm getting with Michigan, yeah, if you're scoring more than 35 on them, you're probably going to beat them because they're just not that type of team. Look at them against TCU. That was a game they did not want to play against TCU. And that was TCU's really only prayer winning was to get in a shootout with them because that's right in TCU's wheelhouse. So yeah, if we're sitting there in the fourth quarter against Michigan and it's like a third and we have 38 points, I think we win.
Yeah, I'm with you there. This is bold predictions from Rob. Singleton and Drew Allar will both be Heisman finalists. Dante Cephas and Keandre Lambert-Smith will both have over 500 yards receiving and 7+ touchdowns. Which the 500 yards receiving is not outlandish. Both having 7 touchdowns is not even that crazy, depending on what you expect Drew Allar to do. Abdul Carter wins the Benerick Award. Storm Duck, Johnny Dixon, and Kalen King all have 3+ interceptions, which again isn't absurd in my opinion, actually. Because what Kalen King had, well, I guess Kalen King only had 2, but Johnny Dixon I think had 2. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did they all have 3 this year? I don't think they had 3, but
no, but those 2 got close, so
yeah,
not absurd. And then Penn State wins the national championship, so there's their national championship. I wanted to breeze by those because I think those are just funny. I get it, but I wanted to show cookies, and because I think cookies is actually pretty good here. Trey Wallace will emerge as the number 1 wide receiver. That, to me, this is the new standard for bold prediction. Something that is reasonably obtainable that is not just Penn State's going to win a national championship. Like, this is now the quality we are expecting when we ask for bold predictions. This isn't outlandish. This is, I mean, well, it's bold is what it is, but it's not Trey Wallace is going to win the Bolentikoff. It's number one wide receiver. I think that is a reasonably good bold prediction, which I don't want to put a cap on the boldness of people's boldness predictions, but that is the measuring stick moving forward. I think that's a good one. What are your thoughts on it, Sean?
I think it's a good one too. Could it happen? Yeah, because I don't look at anybody right now. I mean, I guess I would say the person going in next year that I think has the best potential to be the number one is Keandre Lambert-Smith. But I mean, am I 100% sure he's going to be? He's just the incumbent, and that really doesn't mean a whole. That doesn't really mean a hill of beans going into the year. It's about what happens in spring, what happens in the summer, and then what happens during the football season. So yeah, Trey Wallace, he's shown some things. He just kind of he's kind of like Lambert-Smith in a way that he just has to get more consistent. Like when the ball hits your hands, you got to be able to make some of those catches. He could go up for it, but there were so many times that he just couldn't bring it down, and you're like, I know it was a tough catch, but you should have had it. And if he could just start making some of those catches, I think it's going to go a long way. So I don't think it's totally outlandish. Would I bet money on it? No. But if we were hardcore Penn State betting and we had him at plus at like 70-1 odds to be the number one receiver on the team, yeah, I might take that bet because I think you're getting decent value there.
I'll say this about the receiving position. I don't know how anybody is going to unseed Keandre Lambert-Smith if he blocks the way he did last year. I'm just going to say it right now.
Yeah.
In a world where they are going to probably be run-centric, at least at the first half of the season, I don't know if anyone blocks better than Keandre Lambert-Smith right now. I don't know how Dante Cephas blocks against Power 5 guys all the time. I really think Keandre Lambert-Smith, I mean, is the guy to beat for a lot of different reasons. But you block well, you don't come off the field.
And that's a good point. And the thing with KLS is he could run stride for stride with Singleton down the field. So if there's a cornerback catching up to him, he could just kind of shield that corner away from Singleton to make sure he gets in the end zone.
I love the little shield thing you did there with your arms. Yeah. That's why you have to watch on YouTube, because if you're on the podcast, you don't get to see the extracurriculars that are happening.
Oh yeah, and I was always doing this stuff. I was just doing it to nobody.
Yeah, just to me. Andrew says that Rob's prediction would have helped about Cephas and KLS would help his Allar prediction. Christoph, by the way, everyone's in YouTube tonight, which is fantastic. Nice to see everyone on YouTube tonight. If you haven't already liked the video, please do. But nice for the fellas to show up tonight. That we really appreciate it. Christoph wants your Drew Allar prediction. I'm gonna say don't give it to him yet. I think we hold off on that for now. You're muted again. The mute man is just killing you today.
Damn it. Yeah, we're going to be talking a lot about Drew Allar going into the season, and God, our season preview show, which is like 6 months away.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I'm already excited for it.
Yep, I was thinking about that as soon as you started down that train of thought. I'm like, I can't wait for the season preview show. Are we going to do wing sauces again? I don't know.
You could do wing sauces with maybe pizza toppings.
Ooh, I like that. There we go. Someone write that down. Someone in the chat, remember that. We're going to do pizza toppings. That's a good one, Sean. Yeah, I like where your head's at. Yeah. So you have to wait on that because we got plenty of time. But I'm very excited. Very, very excited to I'm excited just to get to June, to be honest with you. Like start, really thinking about other teams.
Yep. Yeah, our June shows, I'm telling you, for all you new people, they're some of our best shows.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. But stay if you're here now. Don't leave us for.
Yeah, don't just wait till June. Stay with us still because, I mean, we're awesome all year.
What people are really here for is the Penn State draft. Christoph was asking Andrew, not us. He didn't care about our prediction. Dark horse wide receiver guy, Sean, real quick. Elevator pitch.
I've talked about this guy a lot, but I'm going to do it again. Omari Evans. I just love that speed. I think that speed's going to be
That's
tough
what I was
to
going to
keep
say.
off the field. But also keep an eye on Caden Saunders because I think he had a slow start to his college career, but I still think there's a lot of talent there.
I agree. I was going to say Omari Evans too. You said him, and then you kind of also said Caden Saunders, which is illegal, but that's okay. I'm just going to stick with my guns and say Christian Driver as someone to pay attention to. But anyway, I want to say quickly before we do the Penn State draft, Keon Wiley, I tweeted at it and I thought it was kind of a funny tweet and no one else thought it was funny because I said that it was going to make you look smart in front of your friends and family, and like nobody, like we got no interaction on that. So I guess everyone just thought I was being a smart ass. But in all seriousness, Keon Wiley, he already got like the linebacker, whatever, one of the days. He was banged up at the beginning of the year when he first got on campus because he didn't come until the summer. He got banged up right away, and I think that slowed down his progression to get into things. He got the sack in the Rose Bowl. I'm telling you, keep an eye on Keon Wiley. That's your little gem here in February for listening. That will make you look smart in front of your friends and family come the fall.
Yeah, we both liked Wiley out of high school, and I still do. I still like where he's going. I haven't sold. As a matter of fact, I think I'm buying some Keon Wiley stock because the stock price is still pretty low. So get in now.
Yeah, 100. I would put my next 401k, next Roth IRA, next HSA. I'd be putting them all on Keon Wiley stock.
Yeah, and this isn't like an FTX that there's not a Sam Bankman-Fried here. I mean, this is real. Like this guy, I think he's gonna be. I think he's the real deal. So me and Corey are in total agreement on him.
Rojas didn't look too bad either, by the way.
No, I mean, I said Rojas was my favorite recruit coming in, and I stand by that. We just need him to get a little bigger to play this year.
Yeah, his arms look plenty big. Did you see the little cooking thing on Instagram yet?
No.
I had all like the freshmen cooking like their own home dishes or whatever.
Oh, I missed that.
And Tamir Robinson looks like he's been at Penn State for like 17 years already. So yeah,
he's a man.
I think it came on literally right before the show started. So I'll forgive you for missing it. Just don't let it happen again. I'm recording, so let's do this. Penn State football draft season openers. Kind of thought of this one last second, Sean. Well, not really last second, but impromptu. During the show last week, we were like, let's do it. So, I got to get the little coin toss thing again. But I like this one, Sean. I thought this was really fun. I had to dig a little bit.
Yeah, this was a heavy research one.
Did I call heads or tails last time?
I think I called it.
Yeah, you called it and you were wrong.
I was.
All right. Oh, you can't see it. I'm going to say heads.
Okay.
And it was tails. Okay. All right, Sean, you get to go. And I think that's hurting me in the standings here, being 2-1. The winner every time has been whoever's gone first. So I think that's kind of baloney. But anyway, you get to go first yet again. Don't mess up.
All right.
Wait. Should I start? Let me start the recording again. Penn State football draft season openers. Sean, you got the first pick. You're on the clock.
All right. So this was one that I think a lot of people expected. And I'm going to go with the Penn State-Arizona game, 1999. So Arizona was number 3. Penn State was number 4. It was an August day in Happy Valley. It was the old Pigskin Classic, which should still be played. I think week 0 is the most underutilized thing in college football. I don't know why there's not a premier matchup every single year. You end up watching like Hawaii versus Colgate, and I don't get it. So this was a top 5 matchup. Everybody was super excited to see what would happen, and Penn State blew the doors off of the Arizona Wildcats. It was not even a game. You saw a little bit of everything. Penn State won 41-7. Chaffee Fields had a huge game. Larry Johnson made his first appearance in a Penn State uniform, and then Joe hit him away for 3 years for whatever reason. And then, yeah, like LeVar had a day. It was Kevin Thompson, Penn State's quarterback in 1999, had an awesome day. He struggled at times that season, but that day he was good. And Penn State, I mean, they looked like they were going to win the national championship after that game. Like, I feel like if that game happened now, me and Corey, I think we'd have to do a podcast that night, and we'd probably both be kind of intoxicated, but we wouldn't care. And it would be super fun because we'd be like, wow, we're really going to do it. This is the team. And I mean, that 99 team, it was heartbreaking to end the year. I mean, there's no other way to put it. So, yeah, I think you got to go Penn State, Arizona, 1999, number 1.
Yeah, it's really not fair that you get to go first. But yeah, I had that number 1 too. If you tell me that, Penn State beats Pitt, at Miami, at Iowa, and Ohio State all in the same year, like, that's a pretty special year too. And that all started really because of that game against Arizona. So that was also the furthest east Arizona has ever traveled for a football game up to that point. So I thought that was kind of interesting, little factoid for you. But yeah, yeah, good pick there. I was hoping maybe you'd get nervous and you'd go with something else, but you didn't. So congrats on winning the draft. No, there's some other good ones here. I might be able to
make it up.
And I'm gonna take with my second, or I always do that with my first pick in the draft. I'm gonna take the 1996 season opener, Penn State number 11 versus number 7 USC in New Jersey, Giant Stadium. Penn State won 24-7. Good old Curtis. Last minute start, got the start and ended up just tearing USC a new one. Was the most yards USC has ever allowed to a single player on the ground up at that point in program history of 241 yards. Just give Lincoln Riley a couple more years. I don't know if that's still the record.
Oh yeah, that's coming.
that will be taken. Wouldn't it be funny if Penn State played USC at some point and that record was? I don't know if that's still the record. I'm assuming like a Toby Gerhart or a Christian McCaffrey might have broken that by now, but it'd be cool if Penn State and Nick Singleton were able to do something like that at some point again. That'd be kind of cool. But anyway, that was I feel like that 90s was a good time for some of these games back when, like,
I noticed that too.
If you compared like the 90s games, even ones they lost though, but like the openers compared to like the 2000 openers, like, I don't know if it's because we just weren't as good so we didn't schedule anybody, but man, like it goes from like USC's and Arizona and whoever to like Akron, Temple, like, yeah, kind of missed those days. But yeah, that's who I got at number 2. I think I want to say that was pretty clearly number 1 and number 2 there, but anyway.
All right, very good. So for my next pick, and maybe this is recency bias, I'm going to go with Penn State Purdue from this past year.
Reach.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. So, all right, do I have to describe it? All right, so I guess I have to explain my rationale. So
you got to explain something.
So let me tell you, back in those days of September, Penn State, was coming off 2 bad seasons, and they really needed life, and they needed a spark, and they were down late, and I think we were all, I was already waving their white flag. I was like, oh, here we go again, and Cliff disappoints again and lets us down, and didn't end up happening. And I think, as Fidel Castro once said, history will redeem me. And I think history is going to redeem me here. I think Penn State fans are going to be looking back at this, maybe not right now, But in 10 years, if we win a natty, they're going to be like, you know what? Sean was right. That was the kickstart to the saw.
You know, I had that on my list. And so I just didn't have it that high on my list. And I had the same exact thought you did, right? I was like, we could look. I literally thought this today, Sean, which is kind of crazy. I was like, we could look back at that Purdue game and be like, if they didn't win that game, like where the heck would Penn State be right now in the grand scheme of things? So I'm with you on the train of thought. I'm just not with you at that being the next one. But I respect it because I did have it on my list. I just didn't have it. I didn't have it that high. But it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
My next pick, I think you know who I'm going to take with my next pick because I put out a video on Twitter. But my second pick, I'm going to take 1985 Penn State versus Maryland. Number 19 Penn State upsets number 7 Maryland. And on the road, offense really didn't do a whole lot in that game, but they win 2018. Mike Zordich had a pick 6 and the second play from scrimmage. Favorite part about this game, I was watching the highlights of it, was the officials, the referees wearing the pull-up white shorts. I thought that was my favorite part about
Corey,
that.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I have to take my camera off because I have to charge my laptop.
Okay. That's okay.
Right, so you'll still hear me, but I'm taking my camera off.
And just like that, he disappears.
I am still here, though.
Oh, your camera went back on. Your camera's like, not today.
Oh, hold on.
Your call is very important to us.
Could you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, that's who I have at number 3. Or my second pick. Sorry. I had the number 3 though. Assuming Sean is moving around. If you guys are on YouTube, let us know if we agree. Someone on Twitter said that this was someone was at this game was extraordinarily hot at that game. I was not at that game. But obviously, I think 1985, right? Like that was a time where, Penn State was feeling pretty good about themselves, and obviously it led to what would be an incredible year, 1986. So, and Zordich being a legend now, that just the Zordich name is forever in Penn State history. So that's who I had my second pick, Sean.
All right. So with my third pick, I'm going to go with Penn State, Georgia Tech in 1991. So some background for that. Georgia Tech used to be good at football. So good that they won the national championship in 1990. So Penn State was playing them off a national championship in the kickoff classic at the Meadowlands. And Penn State beat them by a score of 34-22. That 91 team was actually a really good one for Penn State. Kind of I don't want to say forgotten about team, but I feel like when people think about the great Penn State teams, that team doesn't come up very often. But I think it was an important win to get. And Georgia Tech ended up not being that great that year. But nonetheless, it was a big statement win for them.
Interesting. I had that as an honorable mention. So
it didn't make the list, huh?
Didn't make my list. It's crazy. I thought we'd be more diverse on last week's draft, but I think we've become more diverse on this one. So I think that's interesting to me. This one I'm interested where you had it because I'm gonna take this as my third pick. I think it's pretty good value, and that's 2014 Penn State win over UCF in Ireland.
It was on my list, yeah.
And big for a lot of reasons, kind of the same reasons you hinted at Purdue. Like, who knows, right? Like, I mean, it wasn't like 2014 was this amazing, we come back in 2015 and we're all of a sudden everything's fixed in the world because obviously that wasn't the case. But I just feel like it's important as a head coach to win your first game. It was James Franklin's first game. It was in Ireland. Sam Ficken kicked 4 field goals and obviously had a really good bounce back year. There was some really good storylines to the entire season that year, but going and beating a UCF team, which program wise would end up just getting better after that. On the road, there's some heroes that day, some unsung heroes, if you will, to that day that became kind of household names. And so, yeah, I think the 2014 game sort of set the course in the right direction. A lot of people didn't know exactly what to expect with James Franklin, and if he loses that game, I'm not saying everything's crazy different, but you don't want to start off with a loss with Penn State fans. I think is the easiest way to say it.
Are you saying they don't handle losses well, Corey?
I'm saying something like that, yeah.
Huh. Yeah. So that, like I said, that was also on my list.
Did you have it high on your list?
I had it pretty high. Yeah, I had it about 5th or 6th. So, yeah. So I like I said, I do like the pick. For my next one, I'm gonna go with 1993, Penn State, Minnesota. So, background on that was Penn State's first Big Ten game, and it was also the season opener. They went and beat a Minnesota team that I don't think ended up being all that special, but I thought it was a pretty strong statement to the rest of the conference that, hey, we're Penn State, we're going to be at least a pain in the ass for you. I mean, I think Penn State fans kind of came into the Big Ten thinking we were going to run the show, and in 1994, they were probably really thinking we were going to run the show, and unfortunately, that didn't end up happening. But that was a big statement to the rest of the conference that we were legit and we belonged in the. I mean, I think everybody knew we belonged in the Big Ten, but it was so. I'm gonna go with the historical perspective there and say Penn State, 1993, Minnesota.
Interesting. Interesting.
Was that on your list?
No. It was not. That makes things really tricky for me.
I think I know what you mean too, because there's some games that are they're tough.
See, I'm surprised you went with that game because I want to go. I know who I'm going to pick. I just want to make sure I get the year right because I did not write it down properly.
Take your time.
Can't read my own handwriting. I can't decide. All right, I'm gonna go with 1994 Minnesota.
That was on my list too.
And when you started saying Minnesota, I was like, I had to double check to make sure that you just didn't have your years back. But 1994 Minnesota, 56-3 win over Minnesota on the road at Minnesota. Because Dani Carter had 3 touchdowns, Kerry Collins had 3 touchdowns, and I think that you were talking about the Arizona game and like feeling something special because of it. I mean, I can only imagine kind of the vibe like after that, shellacking, right? Like just absolutely demolishing Minnesota. Minnesota, not a great team, but I just think it stands for something. Going on the road to start the year, right? We talked about it before the Purdue game. Going on the road to start the year in the Big Ten, not exactly how you ever want to start the season. To do it in that fashion, pretty impressive. And I think, it kind of set the stage.
Yeah, that was kind of why I was considering Minnesota. I might have finished with Minnesota 93, Minnesota 94. Because that does make things tough. Because I have one that I'm thinking about, but we weren't very good that year. But the game was great. And then I have another one where we were pretty good and the game was great. I'm all right. I'm gonna go with the team that ended up being pretty good. And that's Penn State, the first game that I was alive for. Penn State, Texas Tech, 1995. So that was a 24-23 game. It's a big game for me in several ways. Number one, like I said, it was the first game I was alive for. Number two, Texas Tech and Miami Dolphins legend Zach Thomas was the starting middle linebacker, and he had a whale of a game that day. It was kind of his coming out party for the country, and he had over a dozen tackles. And it was a way closer than it was supposed to be. Penn State, they had hanging up on the stadium 1994 New York Times national champions. I mean, it's a little bit like Central Florida say they're the 2017 national champions, but not quite as cringe. And it was seen as, I think Penn State fans, I think it was a lot kind of like the App State game in 2018, where you're like, oh my God, thank God we won that game. Where you look at it 20 some years later and say, wow, that was a great game, but while you were experiencing it, you were just sweating bullets. So because it was an unranked team, we were supposed to kind of roll them, but we didn't, but we were able to hang on. So also big day for Wally. That was kind of Wally's game to show that he's a winner, that he's going to be able to pull games out his ass a little bit, even if he struggles. So gonna go with that one.
Good old Wally. I like Wally Richardson.
Yes, you do.
I was bouncing back and forth between who I wanted. This is actually who I was thinking about taking this last pick, but I'm happy to get them in a fifth round. And that's 1998, number 13 Penn State beating number 21 Southern Miss 34-6. Southern Miss, I couldn't even tell you why they were ranked at the time, but again, I just feel like the 90s, there were so many good matchups. And again, a top 25 win to open the season, you can't argue that. And they did it, in an impressive fashion. So I just feel like you can't undermine those, because those ones just, I don't know. There's something about winning big games to start the season, what they do for your season. Obviously, things don't always work out, but in that case, I don't know. I just wish, when you think about it, those 90s games. I mean, if you look at the list right now, I know there's two of them that are technically in conference, right? But between all the ones we have on our list, now that I have Southern Miss, we have 10 choices. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them are from the 90s.
Dang. Corey, maybe it's because Penn State, they still had that independent streak about them, in that we still wanted to play the best teams that we could play no matter where they were in the country. And I think eventually Penn State just kind of became another Big Ten team, for better or for worse. I'm not saying one way was better or worse, but the matchups, I mean, to open up the season, they were definitely more sexy. And I mean, we won our fair share of them.
Yeah.
Like, these were all wins from us. So, I mean, we were able to play these teams and beat them.
And beat them pretty handily, too. I think Cordell.
And like you look at 99, we played the University of Miami in the Orange Bowl a couple weeks later. So, I mean, to open up, that's unheard of today. Because, man, look, to be fair to us, I mean, back then you played 4 teams out of conference. So you're able to do that. But, I mean, that just doesn't happen anymore. To be able to play, a team like Miami, who was really good that year, and to play Arizona to kick the season off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm with you. Christoph says on YouTube, maybe, just maybe, if you did this draft next year, one of the picks will be the 2023 West Virginia game as a start of a special season with a new era of quarterback.
Could be.
Anyway, that's who we've drafted. I'm feeling pretty good about my teams, to be honest with you. I think this might be, we'll have to wait for the approval, but I think this might be the first time that the second team picker, I'm feeling pretty good, that might get the job done. Honorable mention, Sean, who'd you got? Who did you have? Who'd you got?
All right. So I had Penn State, Wisconsin 2021. I mean, just from a quality of a game aspect, I mean, it was a nail biter throughout. I mean, who wasn't on the edge of their seats? Now, it ended up being both those teams were very mediocre, but I mean, it was an exciting game to watch.
Interesting. I did not have that on my list either.
Really? Interesting.
I had 1947 Penn State versus Washington State. Penn State won 27-6. That game was played in Hershey Park, which I thought was just kind of funny, and I wanted to include. I couldn't find it. I didn't look super hard, but I think that's the only time Penn State's ever played at Hershey Park. They played a blue and white game at Hershey Park, but I think that's the only time they played an actual like in-season game at Hershey Park. But don't quote me on it. I haven't done enough research there. But so I thought that was kind of an interesting factoid to get that on the list. I had 1973 Penn State Stanford. Penn State won. I think that was at Stanford. They blocked the punt for safety. Obviously ended up going perfect that year. So I had that on there. I had the 2001 Miami game on there because of Adam Teleferro, and then you completely just ruined that at the beginning of the show by, not at the beginning of the show, but whatever point of the show by talking about that. So I was like, well, there goes anything I was thinking like that could be a potential like last round pick for me.
How did that even come up again? I forget how it even came up.
We're talking about night games.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yep.
And you completely ruined all that for me. I was like, that'd be a cool sneaky lost pick because of Adam Teleferro that might win me the draft, and then you mentioned it already. So I also had 1887. Penn State beat Bucknell 54-0.
I did not have that.
They played that one game beforehand, but they beat Lewisburg, aka I don't know why was it not Bucknell yet at that point. I don't know if it was just called Lewisburg College. I don't know the history.
It might have been because I think Bucknell is in Lewisburg, so
It is. I just didn't know. Did they not officially become Bucknell until the 1887-ishes? I don't know. Don't have my history of Bucknell College going back to the 1800s very well. Yeah, those are the ones I had. I think that we got. Oh, I had. Yeah, I only want to mention that one. I wasn't even. I had it on there, but that was just research purposes. Yeah, those are the ones I had, Sean.
Yeah, I had 2018 App State too. That was so. Little story about 2018. I might have seen. I think I saw you that day. I think we were together at Darian's tailgate for a little bit. I rode down from Allentown when Mike was still living in Allentown with G Wiz. And if you've ever been on the Turnpike, you've driven through the Lehigh Valley Tunnel. And as soon as we got out of the tunnel, we hit a deer in Mike's car. Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah, I heard about this. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we hit a deer, and I think it was just kind of an omen because immediately I thought, does this mean we shouldn't go? And then, we get there, G Wiz ends up driving. And I mean, Mike's car, it ended up being all right, but he had to get repairs done and everything. So it was a pain in the rear end for him. So it was a fun day of tailgating, and then we get to the game, and we pull up to an early lead, and we're feeling pretty good. We didn't play that great, but we're leading, and then all of a sudden their backup quarterback comes in, and it turns out their backup quarterback is Trevor Lawrence, and we just can't stop him. And I remember winning in overtime. Amani gets the interception. Me and Miguel give a quick bro hug to each other and then run out of the stadium because it just felt like we escaped with the win. So it was a fun game to be at looking back at it, but at the time it was scary.
Yeah, no, I had that one in the back of my head too. I just that App State team didn't end up being, I think, good enough for me to include it. But the Amani Ararie with the interception in the back of the end zone was definitely a moment for me, for no doubt about it.
Yeah, that was right in front of you guys, right? Because you were still in the student section. Right?
It was the right side of the end zone, but it was not. It was technically on the opposite side where I was sitting. But yes.
That's right. Yeah, you guys sat. Yep.
Anyway, good episode today, Sean. I feel like it was worthwhile for everybody.
I mean, we had a girthy episode on a slow week, so that's what we do here.
Yep. Hopefully, Tyler, you have a safe drive. We appreciate you listening to us. Thank you for your question on Instagram. Thank you guys all for hanging out on YouTube tonight. We really appreciate that. We'll be back next week with a little bit more in-depth look at the 1947 season. Sean, I know you haven't looked as deep yet, but I think there's a lot to unearth from that. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll be back with another. Do we want to go to another position next week, Sean?
Yeah, I think we could go back to positions. What do you want to do, or should we?
Let's do offense.
Want to do receivers?
Yeah, we can do wide receivers. It's gonna be challenging as hell. I think that's gonna be really hard for me.
Yeah, me too. Especially that top of the list.
Yeah, but yeah,
top 5 or 6 guys. Ooh, that is tough.
Yeah, let's do wide receivers.
Alrighty.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate y'all. If you made it this far, please drop a 5-star review, and just share it with a friend. Share the pod with a friend. That's always the biggest thing we ask from you guys. So, thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your week. You've been listening to Hardcore Penn State Football. For Sean Kane, I'm Corey Listoki. See you guys.
Bye.